There we go. Okay, we are live. We've been working on this the whole week. This Google Home animation, the connecting to Wi-Fi animation made by Gunner. And it's just circles and squares, basically. But it is relatively complex. And today we're going to get to the last step. We're going to do this nice little effect where in parts of the animation, the colors for everything are gray. And as they come into this middle part, the Wi-Fi icon area, they change color. Okay, so let's go and have a look at what this animation actually ends up looking at, or what this technique is. Okay, so you see here, right in the middle. And hold on a second, I gotta turn on my mouse capture because I didn't do that yesterday. And there you go. Woo! He remembers it for the day. Okay, so right here you see there's color on this one and this one. So there's a green dot and a red diamond. But if we go a few frames further ahead, and I'm just clicking down in the side here, there you go. You see how right here that circle gets cut off and becomes gray, and then eventually the square or the diamond becomes gray as well. This is the technique that we're going to do today. This is the last step in this rebuild, okay? Because we're almost there. We got all the motion, we got everything structured, everything is moving the right way, and now we just got to take that build that we've created and create this other effect on top of it or behind it. Which way? Okay, let's go and have a look. I'm going to close this, and this is where we got to yesterday. All right, so let's slow this down just a bit. I'm going to press Shift and I'm going to click on the time to slow it down to 0.5 playback. And this is how it looks. Looks like one of those groups is off. There we go. The circle group is hidden. There you go. Something like that. Okay, so everything is moving sort of opposite. One's counterclockwise, the other's clockwise, that sort of thing. And we even have these little triangles in here to do that fade. Okay. And even the timing of this circle, it only goes, this red circle only goes counterclockwise once, but doesn't come back. All right, there we go. Okay, so one thing I do notice that we missed from yesterday, right, was the changing of this diamond group to red. So what actually happens is it turns into the same color as the circle 2 group, which is this color right here. So let's just do that now to get that out of the way. I'm going to copy this value right here. And right at this time, right here, with relative mode on and that diamond group open, we are going to select it and change its color to this color. There we go. And now I'm just going to go and delete that last key value that gets generated, and I'm going to click on the easing curve, and I'm going to make that a step right so that it changes right at this moment in time, because what we actually want is we want it to be red on the way back and yellow on the way forwards. Yellow on the way forwards, red on the way back. All right, so now here's where things get interesting. The first step I'm going to do, okay, is this. So again, perception. All of this is perception. So the colored area, or the shapes, they're only colored when they're inside of this this sort of like triangle Wi-Fi area, right? They're sort of in here, that's where they're colored. So what we're going to do is we're going to play with a new layer. We're going to duplicate this one. We're going to play with a new layer. We're going to do a couple of little rotations, and then we're going to mask that layer to its bounds. And that's what's going to cause the clipping of the colored areas. Because there's two ways to think about it. You can think about having gray on both sides for your animation, and then those getting clipped as they come in, or you, instead of worrying about clipping two separate groups on top of the colored group that you have and overlaying things, what you're going to do is you're going to have gray, one solid layer of everything that we've done right now, gray underneath, and one layer on top with color, and that one's going to be clipped. And so then you have basically two groups. Okay, this is the technique we're going to use. So let's go and have a look at this. So here we go. We're going to have our group. This triangle left and this triangle right, we can leave right in place. Okay. This is the one that we're going to duplicate. Now, let's call this, this is going to be our background group. Background. And now we're going to right click and we're going to duplicate with key values in place. We're just going to duplicate the entire thing. All right. And we're going to call this foreground. Now, we can bring that foreground underneath those two. Doesn't really matter. Actually, no, let's just leave it above. So now we have two separate layers of the exact same kinds of animations happening. Okay, but what are we actually doing? Well, we are animating the colored elements. So we really don't need a ton of, we don't need to duplicate everything. So what I'm going to do is we're going to keep that circle group 2 for sure, because that's color. The diamond group for sure, that's color. And we are going to keep the arcs, and we're going to get rid of these triangles like this. We're going to get rid of the outer arcs like that. And it's all these shapes that we're going to keep, okay? Because they all change color just slightly. Even the dark gray ones change to a lighter gray. Now, here's the trick. All right, so over here we have our colors, and we don't want to be able to see them as color here. So watch this. I'm going to save just to make sure we're all good. We are going to turn on relative mode. We are going to insert a layer, and this group here is 400 by 200. What we're actually going to do with this layer is we're going to make it 200 by 200. Just like that. All right, let's give it some color so we can see it. Just for now, so we can see it. Let's make that color 100%. We are going to now put its anchor point in the bottom right hand corner. Okay, so I was over here in the anchor point. Put it in the bottom right hand corner because we're going to rotate this layer. Before we do, we're going to position it so that that anchor point is right in the middle of the scene, essentially at the bottom center of our animation. Then we're going to take that foreground and we're going to drop that in there. And we're going to call this the foreground group. Okay. All right, so now if I move forward a little bit, you see? All of those layers, those few layers are going to be over top, or they're going to be inside of this group. Now what we're going to do, we're going to take this foreground group. No, so let's do it this way. Let's say we're going to rotate this by 45 degrees. Boom. So now all of our animations are rotated inside of that area. See that? And then we're going to take that foreground group. Again, relative mode is on for all this. We're going to make the anchor point the bottom middle. So this big wide group that we duplicated and dropped into here, we're now centering its anchor point right here in the middle. And we're going to say minus 45 degrees. Now our shapes are inside of this group. Okay, all of these shapes, they're inside of this group and they're synced with the original animation. So watch this. See? Switches. You can't even tell the difference, right? It's because they're over top of one another. Watch. If I turn this off and turn it on, okay, those layers that you see here, those are underneath that black area right there. They're underneath it. So when I go up here now and I click mask to bounds. Oh, no, on this one, we're going to mask to bounds. Okay. And I start moving. There you go. You see how the color is changing? The color is changing here because the original layer is underneath this triangle left or triangle right. All right, so it's going to do this little fade right at that moment that we want it to be. Okay, so now we go ahead and we select that group. We are going to change its opacity back to 0. And we're going to just turn it off for a second. Actually, we don't need to. What we're going to do is we are going to select the colored elements down in the bottom here. We're going to say that center arc. No, we want to leave that one. We're going to grab these circles. This one, this one, this one, and this one. Okay, all of our layers. We're going to grab them all. And then at the end here, we are going to do a little bit of colors. We're going to go like this. We're going to select them all. We're going to make them all that gray color. So I clicked here and I just selected this gray color that was part of that arc right there. And there were a couple that had animations on them, so let's go and have a look at those. But for now, what we can start to see is, okay, there we go. So they had animations on them. So let's go back up here. Let's take circle 1. The background color should just be what it was at the end. We are going to delete that. And circle 2, no color animation. Diamond, the background color should be what it was at the end. And circle group 2, arc 2, circle 2, is there a background color? Yep, so it should be what we want it to be at the end, because that's where I changed the animations. And now everything should be gray, and it cuts in. Look at that. There we go. Okay, let's watch that. Nice and slow. Shift. 1/4 of a second speed, or 25% speed. Look at that. Lovely. Okay. There we go. There is our animation. Cool. That is super nice. All right, so I'm super stoked about that. That was a lot of work. All right. So we did this over the course of 4 days because we didn't do anything on Monday. But what we did on the first day was we just restructured. And this is always what you need to start by doing, is just think through, how am I going to animate, and I'm going to build a structure. Build the structure, make it look like the layers that you're trying to rebuild. And then from there, you can start animating in little steps. Usually we pick the easiest things to animate first. So what did we do first? We did just the motion of the squares and circles, right? We did that on day 2, on Tuesday. And so when that was all in place, and we used anchor points for that, we also used little subgroups inside of other groups, or we put some layers inside of groups so that we could dynamically change the size of the red dot, for instance. And then we animated the arcs, and then we used a technique, again, perception, to we're actually animating the entire motion of the arc, and we're keeping that in sync with the other things, and then we just added 2 layers over top of that to kind of create a pseudo clipping mask on top of those things, because all we want to see is the arcs in the very center area. Now, we could have also done today's technique, but it's all right. We're just showing different techniques to do the same thing. And then, so yesterday, yeah, we did the arcs, and then today we did this masking technique of putting stuff inside of another group, rotating that group, and then anti-rotating the main animation, and then we stripped out any any layers that we didn't need in that animation, and then we masked the bounce, and that's how we pulled all of this together. And now, I won't take credit for this lovely animation. This is work by Gunnar. I'm going to put, well, their link has been in all of the descriptions for each one of the days today, and I'm going to ping everybody about that later on. Okay, so if anybody has any ideas about what to do next week, just fire me off some suggestions, because I have a couple of ideas, but maybe you do too. All right, and I'll see you next week.